Welcome to the Next Gen podcast. Thanks so much for being with us this week and tuning in. We have a fun episode today as we talk about something we are both very passionate about. And so, as always, this is Pastor Blake, the Waukesha youth pastor, and joining me, my co-host.
This is Pastor Philip Hahn, the Bridge Church Waukesha kids pastor.
Yes, sir. And so we are here to talk about camps, retreats, getaways, all the things that we send you a bunch of emails about and we bug you about and we tell you, sign up, please sign up. This is going to be awesome. Sign up. And we mean it when we say it, that there's a reason that we have so much urgency behind wanting your students to come to different camps and retreats that we offer. And it's almost camp season.
Yeah, well, all year long is kind of camp season. We got a lot of retreats throughout the course of the year. We got winter retreat, youth convention, youth camps, kids blast, Royal Ranger campouts, girls ministry, Great Escape. There's so many different things we ask you to send your kids to.
There's a lot of things going on, and we want to help you with that, and that's why we send you all those emails and stuff. And we know that a big part of why we get so excited about camp is because we believe that God does amazing things at camp. And so we want to talk through just a little bit about what our expectations are, why you should send your kids to camp. When we say camp, we mention different retreats and other things that are overnight activities for your students, but summer camp is coming up very soon, and it's some Ranger camps as well.
Yeah, Ranger camps, girls ministries camp. We got the all-week kids camp coming up.
Yeah, youth camp's coming up. We do a middle school week and a high school week, and so we are excited to talk about this because it's so prevalent for us. The signups are actually live right now. If you go to bridgechurch.net, you can look at some of the youth camp signups I know are live, and I'm sure some others are going to be coming out as well, so stay tuned to those. But summers are busy. We'll just say life is busy, right? I feel like that's a lot of people's answers to things, and so we sometimes can tell you to sign up for this, and you're going, man, another thing that I need to get my kids to or to pay money for. That's the big thing is like, all right, how much is this thing going to cost me? And so...
and we got some solutions to both of those problems in a minute. For sure. And I think some of it, too, is like, well, what's it worth to you? Yeah. And I hope, and I say that with all love and grace, because I understand money can be difficult. I totally get that. But I also think if we were to ask, okay, how much would you pay for peace, right? And I'm not saying we're promising these things, but I think that's a thing we believe God can bring peace in people's lives and that he can do that at a camp. And so we're going, how much would you be willing to pay for something like this? Because the truth is there's a lot of camps who offer a lot of different things and different options. And I know for me, growing up in the sports world, kids would get offered to go to these sports camps, and they might get looked at by a college coach, but it's going to cost you about $500 or $1,000. But it's for this opportunity that might be there, this thing that might be out of reach. And so we're saying, what is the actual cost or benefit? Well, big picture,
going to a camp. Yeah, tell us kind of the big idea of camps.
The big idea is we have a lot of activities to choose from in life, and really, we are not trying to provide things to do.
Right.
That has never been the goal. But we just came back from our annual ministers meeting for the Assemblies of God ministers in our district, and they reiterated the power of camps because most people who are in ministry today got their calling at a camp. Yeah. And by most, I mean like 80%.
Right. That number's super high.
It's unbelievable. So when you separate yourself from daily life, you have the opportunity to, without distraction, hear the voice of God. Yeah. That's why we have 3 or 4 Royal Ranger campouts here, why we have Girls Great Escape, why we have youth convention, why we have winter retreat, why we have camps. Because when you separate yourself from the grind of daily life, the distraction of your TV, your devices, your schedule, having to prepare lunch, those types of things do take attention away. But when you step out of that, even if it's just for a weekend, you have the opportunity to hear the voice of God. That's where kids get saved, filled with the Holy Spirit, called into ministry, transformed spiritually. They get freed from bondage. And there's just so much stuff that happens when you just drive away from your house.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, is when we can get outside of our normal. Sometimes that's when God speaks the loudest to us. And we're both proponents of, obviously, because we have programming that happens weekly, God can move on a Sunday.
Oh, yeah,
in kids'
absolutely.
church. God can move on a Wednesday at youth group or in Royal Rangers or Girls. In all these different areas, we know that God is still God, that God can still move. But that doesn't negate that there is something special about getting away.
We put obstacles between ourselves and God.
Yeah.
They're not all bad.
Right, for sure.
There are just normal distractions of daily life. That's why God instituted a law that said, take 1 day a week where you do nothing but pay attention to me. It's because you need to stop working to pay attention to God.
Yeah, it's easy.
And I'll be honest, an hour and a half on a Sunday morning is not exactly a retreat.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes me an hour and a half just before I can start, listening.
Yeah. Yeah, and realistically, that might be the only time different students really focus on Jesus. And sometimes they get thrown in this mix. And so that's, I think, why we see so many powerful things come out of a week of camp is because that's our sole focus. And I love what you said. There's, of course, going to be activities there. There's, of course, going to be fun.
Oh, yeah. We
there.
have fun. We're not going to just, have an activity where we just spend
Everyone,
10 hours praying.
Remain quiet.
Yeah, let's spend 10 hours praying. No, they have games. They have fun activities. I mean, you go to a Royal Ranger camp out there doing all kinds of fun stuff. But I'll tell you, that time around the council fire when those boys are praying and seeking God with older men laying their hands on them and praying over them and seeking God, I mean, those are some powerful times. You don't even need a big old worship band. Yeah. It's just a bunch of people who love Jesus mentoring younger people.
Yeah, it's seeking Him probably more and maybe even more passionately than we do in our normal day-to-day lives.
Absolutely.
And so we encourage camps for everybody. We think that this is such an impactful time. It was impactful in my life. It's where I received my call to ministry at a camp. It's where I have so many memories, both the fun ones, but also, man, the deeply challenging ones and convicting ones and spiritual ones where I remember specifically singing a song about "You're the God of this city," and I was crying thinking about my city, of how many of my friends didn't know Jesus.
Yeah, I was called into ministry at 7 years old at a Royal Ranger winter camp.
Yeah.
I was filled with the Holy Spirit at a youth convention in Illinois. That's where we get out of God's way and allow Him to speak. But Pastor Blake, there's a lot of obstacles that prevent people from being able to send their kids to camp.
Yeah,
Can you talk about some of those things that people may, here's my hesitation why I haven't been sending my kids to camp.
Yeah.
What are some of those obstacles?
I think there's some ones that are very normal as far as, hey, we didn't know camp was at this time, right? And
Stay informed.
The good news is, at least for our youth camps, and I'm sure it's similar for our other camps, is they're the same time every year. And so if you can help to be aware of that, I'll have parents, text me in January, hey, we're planning our vacation for this year, when's camp? And so some of it is just the availability of when camp is. And I think knowing that, planning around those, I think, man, I really do think these events are important enough to put them on your calendar before you make other plans. This is something you plan around.
Yeah.
That's not a convenience for you. So that's a big thing I would encourage. And right now, we have dates for you. So just text us, call us, whatever it is. We would love to make those
BC
known
app,
to you.
Text alerts,
they're out
e-newsletter.
Yeah.
There's so many communication points.
Figure out which one works for you. Yeah.
Pick your favorite, the one that you're going to pay attention to, and just look at it.
So that's I think a huge thing. One is just knowing when we're going mission trips as well as another time God speaks and moves, and that's a little different than a retreat, but it is going somewhere else to really focus on others and God. And so just encourage you to check out our website for those details. And then two, another huge one is cost.
Finances.
The cost of trips is big, especially. We have some youth that there's 4 kids in youth group. So that's 4 kids going to camp.
Yeah, you got some kids want to go to kids camp, some kids that want to go to youth camp, and you've got 4 or 6 kids. That's a hefty bill.
Yeah, I mean,
and then you want to go to more than one, so you want to go to the Royal Ranger camp out, the Girls Ministries camp out, and kids camp, and Kids Blast in the winter. So it stacks up over the course of a year.
We are 100% aware of that. We do everything we can to make the camps as low as cost as possible. I mean, there's things that we do on our side that actually can cut the cost of what it will cost us.
Yeah.
because we do believe, man, it's so important for kids to come to these things. And so,
to be honest, there are a lot of camps and retreats that we put on that we actually lose money on those because we don't want.
Yeah.
We're using money out of our budget to pay for you guys to go to camps so that you don't have to absorb all the costs. Sometimes the price is just offsetting some of the cost.
That's 100% what it is. And man, that's such a. Here's how I want to say it: we put our money where our mouth is when it comes to camps. We're not making money off of camps. And like what you said, we're not really even covering our costs of what it takes because we want students to go.
But we also know that just because we're making it as cheap as we can doesn't put that money in your wallet to spend it.
100%.
So at the same time, we want you to be able to go to everything that you can afford to go to, both budgeting your time and your money. At the same time, if there's an event that you want your kids to go to, if you want your students to be at youth convention, at winter retreat, at Kids Blast, at Kids Camp, please tell us.
Yeah,
we
reach
want
out.
to work with you. Our district offers help. Our church offers help. If there's, some way that we can offset those costs to make it available to you, we want to help in any way we can to get your students to these camps and retreats.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have people that will come up to me and say, I don't want finances to be a reason a kid can't go to camp. And so they're telling me I will sponsor a kid to go to camp. I mean, there's people who are generous enough and maybe even this is a impactful time in their lives, and so they want to bless a student with this thing as well. And so, man, I think both of us would sit here and say,
don't let money be an obstacle.
Money won't be the obstacle that for kids at Bridge Church, they can't go somewhere.
Yeah.
If we know about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing too, right? Is our pride can get in the way and whatever it is can get in the way. So please, always reach out to us. I think something too is that parents can feel a little like, hey, what do you take my kids to?
Yeah, that's the one that I face more often probably than you do. You're gonna take my third grader off to a week without me. Are they going to be cared for?
Yeah.
Who's watching them? Are they going to be unsupervised? And let me just tell you, our district makes it almost impossible for a child to be anywhere alone.
Yeah.
They are very, very intentional about training all of their cabin leaders, training. In fact, they just instituted some brand new training to even further the safety of the kids, to make sure that every adult that has access to the kids is doing everything they can to make sure they are as safe and supervised everywhere they go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say also for both of us that we are only inviting adults that we deeply trust, that have had the background checks, that we know personally,
that have been through the trainings.
These aren't. We're not taking people to mentor and shepherd our students that we wouldn't allow to shepherd our own kids. Is how I would say it. Of like, I deeply trust the volunteers I'm bringing with me, and these people are giving up a week of their life. Some of them are using PTO to come to these camps with us. They're committed to your students, to love your students, care for your students, and I think that's a very good question parents are asking. Hey, who are these people going with my kids? What are my kids going to be doing? Man, I hope parents are having those questions, but I also hope that they will trust us when we give these answers, and hopefully if you're relieved when we say, man, there's people who are going to help take care of your kids, who are going to love on your students, but also invest in them and challenge them and care for them. And I do think there's something special, and I'm trying how to say this and not be offensive to anybody, when your kid gets to be away from you.
Yeah, I know that it's funny because I'm a children's pastor and a parent. And so sometimes those lines get blurred, and I end up trying to preach to my own kids and disciple my own kids. And they're like, dude, we've heard it. I don't want to hear it from you. And then one of their Royal Ranger teachers or one of their youth leaders speaks into their life some truth that I've been hammering for the last 10 years. And they're like, no, my youth pastor just said this. And I'm like, dude, well, I'm glad you finally heard it from him. I've been saying it for 10 years.
You're preaching it to the choir. It's the same thing with kids at youth camp or convention or wherever it is, and the speaker will say that, and I was like, we literally just had a whole series on that, and this kid's going,
sometimes somebody else's voice is just a little clearer in their ears.
For sure. Yeah, it gives your kids a space to blossom and to grow and to build those friendships and relationships. There's a ton of side benefits of camp. Hit me with a few real quick, and then we can wrap up this podcast.
Well, there's a whole lot of positive memories of your childhood that you go back and say, boy, I remember youth convention, or boy, I remember those jokes, with those inside jokes on the bus, or those innocent little pranks we played in the cabin.
Right.
It's like those memories are just worth $1 million. I tell you, I remember I remember Randy jumping from bed to bed. Oh, some of the things that we were doing, it was just hilarious. We had so many inside jokes at kids camp.
Yeah, it is such a fun time to, one, make friends, to hang out with people, to meet people from around the state, because it's not just our own church going, it's all these other churches going together. And so you get to see people across your state, your age, pursuing Christ together. I think that's an incredible thing too. For me, I met my wife at camp, so that's a pretty sweet benefit. I tell all of our students,
we're not advocating dating at camp.
Go to camp. We don't go to camp to meet your spouse. And they go, "What, Pastor Blake? That's what you did." And I said, "I'm the exception. I'm not the rule here, people."
Yeah, it's not a dating opportunity. Camp, that's not why we go. And
we have a funny laugh about that. But we just want to encourage you, as the summer is approaching, one, maybe just check the dates of camp, see if that's available for you now. If not, plan next year. Plan for later in the year for what will be available for your student to go to camp, to get away, to make these memories with each other, to have fun, but then also to make time to be away to grow closer to God.
Yeah, I hope you just take this opportunity to really, in your head and in your heart, prioritize getting your kids and your students to a place where they can exclusively give God attention and give God the opportunity to speak. And hopefully we've taken away some of the barriers that you may have tried to put up or unintentionally put up to prevent your kids from going. We want them there. God wants them there, and he can do amazing things in their lives when they are.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope that you have a great rest of your week, and we would love to talk with you later. Have a great week.